Hi everyone and welcome back to the fantasyfootballfix.com YouTube channel with me, Tom Campbell, for another Elite 11 team reveal. Ahead, guys, of the first double game week of the season. We've got Craig joining us for the first time in what feels like forever, and we're going to get right into chip strategy. He's already used his triple captain chip, which makes this video a little bit more nuanced, but still be loads of good advice for you, probably coming from Craig rather than myself. So without further ado, guys, let's get right into it. Craig, mate, it's been a minute. How on earth are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing very well, thanks.
Good, man.
Looking forward to the fun part of the season.
Well, this is how I was thinking, right? It's like we've toiled through the winter and got through it. And those of us who are still engaged in the game, this is the fun part, like you say, right? We've got double game week strategy upon us. That's why we play the game, right, mate?
Yeah, absolutely. It's without even any comparison, it's by far my favorite part of the season, and also the most time consuming, I would say
Yeah,
as well. But
that's a good
I
point,
enjoy
mate.
it.
Good.
So
Yeah, so guys, obviously this week's video, we're going to focus, of course, on double game week 24, get Craig's thoughts ahead of this upcoming double, but we're also going to look further down the road in terms of the upcoming doubles or what we expect to be happening in relation to those fixtures and how best to use your chips, your remaining chips. And as I mentioned in the introduction, Craig's already used his triple captaincy chip. I suspect a lot of managers will be using it in double game week 24 on a certain Egyptian king. That, of course, is to still be encouraged, but I'm really intrigued, Craig, to get into your thoughts about that. Just before we do, though, let's look backwards a little bit. You have another great season, mate, right? You've got loads of money in the bank, you've got loads of free transfers accrued, and you're sitting around 110k. Happy with the season? How's it all been going for you since we last spoke?
well, I was happy 3 weeks ago. I was at 40k, and I've dropped down to 120 or something like that, and I've 3 really bad weeks. I'm not even sure how much bad luck it was. I haven't had wood. I just don't rate wood as a player, and that's bitten my FPL rank really big time. Not just
Yeah.
that, but mainly that Arsenal clean sheet wipeouts and the rest of it. But it's gone a wee bit downhill, but I'm still feeling double
Yeah.
cocky. There's plenty of time to go. I've got most of my chips left, and
hmm
I'm probably zagging against the trend with the chip strategy. So I'm looking forward to how I go. A bit nervous actually, a
Yeah.
bit about the chips, but especially this season with the assistant manager chip, which is ridiculously powerful and can really help you, but it can absolutely kill you as well. So looking forward to talk about that.
Mate, I'm looking forward to being talked at because I don't know about you, but I've been sort of tying myself in FPL knots trying to consider how best to use this, particularly like I think depending on your overall rank and what your aspirations are. I think there's massive kind of variance in terms of how you can use it and your acceptance of risk, for example. So I'm really intrigued to see what you're going to be recommending for that. So just before we look at the team, Craig, ahead of what it's shaping up for double game week 24, you're, like I say, just over 100,000 overall rank. You've got tons of free transfers racked up. You've got a bunch of chips as well. Double game week season ahead. You're third in the FPL Elite Managers League as well. What's the goal for the rest of the season, mate? What would represent a good season for you once we wrap up this season?
It's still 10k. I'm still going for
Yeah,
10k. I mean, I'd be happy with first in the league with the other elite level, so that would be a
yeah,
a plaster. But no, I'm still going for 10k. I still think
yeah,
it's doable. It was
definitely.
certainly doable 3 weeks ago. So I still feel that I can turn it around, and there's
hmm
enough to there's especially enough chips knocking around to make some difference. So still the
Definitely.
same.
I reckon a top 10k finish, mate, and you'll be definitely be close to winning that league as well. So I'll wait with interest to see how that works out.
Mm.
But guys, we're actually not going to take a look back at game week 23. We're actually going to look straight ahead to Craig's double game week 24 side and get his thoughts around how best to use these free transfers. So let's take a look at double game week 24. Okay, mate. So you and I were talking off camera just a few moments ago. This side right here that I'm looking at, Craig, it already looks super strong to me. It's kind of no surprise, right? You're having a good season, but you've got 4 free transfers. You've got money in the bank as well already. Talk to me about how
Mm.
you're feeling in terms of the team composition, including those folks on the bench so far, and your approach going into double game week 24 without that free triple captaincy chip at hand. What are you thinking, mate? How are you looking to maximize your returns in double game week 24?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose we'll get onto the details of it later, but from an overall perspective, I need to raise a bit of cash somewhere. Um, because either let's just say it is either if I'm going for assistant manager, then it's probably slot, which means I need 1.5 million cash to pay for him. I don't have it. Gonna have to find it. Fine, I've got 4 free transfers. That's not so hard. And if I don't go for that, then I need Gakpo. If for nothing else as insurance. So I need to find some money for Gakpo. Isaac's going nowhere right now. Salah and Palmer are going nowhere right now. Trent obviously not in 24. Everybody else is up for grabs. There's
Okay.
nobody nailed in that team right now who's not dispensable. Certainly not João Pedro. He can do one right away.
Yeah.
But the ones I want, regardless of what the chip strategy is Mbuemo. I think, like many others, I sold him some weeks ago, and with his tough schedule of fixtures ahead, and he's just smashed it, and he's smashed me ever since. So I need him back. His numbers are great. His games are pretty good. He plays in a blank game week 29. What's not to
Yeah.
like? He needs to come in. But the question is for who? So really, it's either Gordon or in an as yet undecided schedule of events. Gordon and Bruno and Timber will certainly leave the building over the next couple of weeks. And Buemo will come in. At least one of the Bournemouth midfields will come in. Not this week, probably next week. Timber will go for somebody cheap. That's just a necessity. And I think those strikers will live to fight another day this week.
Yeah. That makes
We'll
sense,
see,
right?
despite the fact I really can't stand them. But I think the priorities lie either in, well, unless it's Gakpo. Gakpo would come in for Pedro. But if I don't go for Gakpo, then unfortunately João Pedro and what's his name, Raul, they'll live to fight one more stinky day
Yeah.
in my team, and then they can do one.
It doesn't feel like you're missing out on heaps up front, though, Craig. Right, outside of the massive investment that would be Erling Haaland, right? It doesn't feel like the striker pool outside of Gakpo for Double Game Week 24 is that plentiful, right? So, in terms of making that money, then,
No.
Craig, let's get your thoughts around where the cash cows are. So, Bruno Fernandes is still a popular choice in FPL circles, isn't he, with the fixtures that they've had, but United, I mean, we can talk at length about the state that they're in and this kind of Jekyll and Hyde team that they can be. But Bruno Fernandes on the chopping block to free up the money, does that feel like the most likely avenue to do that? And if so, who would you be downgrading him to from in the midfield?
I mean, just to be fair to the guy, it isn't like I think he's a hard sell. If you don't have to sell him, then I'm not suggesting you do. I think he's still not a bad option. But I
Okay.
think Mbuemo is ahead of him for my money. So is Semenyo. Utara at Bournemouth is also really getting my attention. Clivert is flavour of the month. I think all those three are just or four even, are just in better form and are cheaper.
Yeah.
And if you need to raise the money for a Gakpo or a slot or something else down the line, then I think he's an obvious one to go. If you don't need to sell him, I think Gordon's an even easier sell. Not this week, perhaps at home to Fulham, but from there on, I think Gordon is infinitely dispensable. He's also been a bit of a letdown. Good
Yeah.
numbers, looks good on the eye, but he hasn't really delivered the FPL points. And we'll find out next week, but he'll almost certainly blank in. I expect him to blank, I should say, in game week 29. So
Yeah.
that's when him and big question mark Isaac start becoming dispensable.
Yeah. So
But
those
for
two.
me, it's Bruno and Gordon are the two most, and Timber are the ones who I have no, who I can use to raise some cash, and I
Yeah.
will.
Yeah, I get it, mate.
It's just the.
So in terms of, and we'll come on to chip strategy in a moment, Craig, but in terms of the assistant manager chip for Double Game Week 24, is that what we're thinking is likely for you going into this game? Are you thinking Arne Slot is the man that you're going to be looking to do, or is it a Gakpo? Which way are you leaning, mate? What's the plan for your assistant manager chip, I should say?
What's the plan for the assistant manager chip?
Help me.
Excuse me?
Help me, because I don't know when to use it.
Right. Okay. Are we yeah. Okay. Are we moving on to the other slide?
I tell you what.
On this one.
I tell you
Let's
what.
just take it. Take it helicopter. Let's start with the helicopter. I think it's by far the most powerful chip.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it's a massive pain in the arse chip because it's so powerful to absolutely shaft you and kill your season. if you're on the wrong end of some really horrible variants, because I'm thinking mainly of I find it wildly unpredictable how to pinpoint which of these bonus games will be the ones which give the rewards. Um, I think Rob T on
Oh yeah.
X and Blue Sky had done some really good analysis of the likelihoods
Hmm.
of you hitting the jackpot on some of the bonus games. It's really, really low. And as we'll come to look at a little bit later, depending on which weeks you're talking about playing at, I mean, even if you take the bonus game out of the bonus points out of the equation, if I said here's a free £10, place it on the underdog who's 5 places below to win the game, you'd be nervous about spending my money. It's just that there really aren't that many super obvious games to
No.
put it on. So somebody will hit the jackpot. I'm certain about that. But for me, the assistant manager chip is all about. It's not usually my style, I don't think, but I feel remarkably conservative about going after the big guns,
Okay.
just getting those points in the bank.
Okay.
So I think if you could turn it around, I would say if you haven't played your TC, you haven't played the triple captain, despite his drop in numbers and despite the 2 away games being a little bit tricky, all things being relative for Liverpool, I still think it's an absolute no-brainer to play it on Salah this weekend.
Yeah, I concur
I really
definitely.
think if you haven't played the division captain, then it's Salah, and you shouldn't even think too much about it. On the other hand, if like me, you've already played the triple captain, I think it gets much more murky. But bearing in mind, if you have that approach that I do, which is what I don't want to waste it on hoping that a Leicester beat a Bournemouth or whatever. We'll look at some concrete examples later on.
Hmm.
I'm not for that. I think play it safe and play it on the heavy hitters is the way to go, and
Yeah.
maximize it by hitting one of the 3 doubles in 24, in 33, or in 36. Um, but there are some inherent challenges with playing it in the second and the third of those 3 slots in 33 and in 36 because of the impact with the other chips. So if you were to try and hit 33,
Hmm.
um, then 34 is a blank. And it's really quite hard to imagine if you leave the assistant manager to one side for a second, planning a team because you can't use any other chips when you play the assistant manager. So planning a team that you can go through 31, 32, 33, it's forcing you into playing um, the free hit in 34, which we don't really know yet whether 29 or 34 is the right one to play it in. But it's forcing you into some choices which might not be optimal just by hitting the 33 game. It also probably means you wildcard quite late, which I'm not particularly crazy about doing.
Hmm.
Others, your minds may vary and you're completely happy doing that. But for me, no. And then there was with 36, again, it kind of leaves you leaving it late in the day. And I think it's scrambling for games which don't really exist, in honesty. Not to
They
mention
don't.
is the fact that you've got the usual variance. There's that variance. Everyone's saying, oh, there'll be teams on the beach. There'll be teams on the beach. Saying, yeah, but which ones, lads? It's like it's not actually that easy to predict.
It's
I
not.
don't think so. It isn't like you can say with any sense of guarantee, and it isn't that Tranmere Rovers are suddenly going to get parachuted into the Premier League and start playing against Leicester. There were some pretty foreseeable situations. I think it's the interrelationship with the other chips, which for me is a little bit more important about how to
Yeah.
get them all to flow into each other without damaging the impact of them along the way. So for me, with the triple captain already played, there isn't for me a standout week to play to play the system manager, but the one which has the least
Like
potential
impact.
negative impact upon
Mhm.
the other chips is 24.
Yeah, makes really good sense and really well
So
explained
that's
because
where I am right now. I'm
yeah, you're
Yeah.
leaning that
So,
way.
but I'm 50, but having said that, I'm 50-50.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, let's see whether or not this conversation tips the balances, the scales one
Yeah,
way
let's
or
do
the
that.
other. Craig, let's move on. Then we've tried to visualize what these options might look like, guys. So if you're in a similar position to Craig, you've already used that triple captaincy chip, or even if you don't, this might give you some food for thought in terms of potential chip strategy usages down the stretch. Okay, guys, so we've got 3 options here. And as I mentioned, triple captaincy already been used. Wildcard was used shortly afterwards. Goodness me, back in game week 6 feels like an eternity ago now. We just sort of talked around some of the potential options. So I guess from what you just described so thoroughly and clearly, Craig, around assistant manager in double game week 24, feels like that seems like a safe-ish play based on the, as you say, the reduced impact on the other chips further down the road. Is that a fair kind of summary? Yeah. Okay. So what do you want
It's a
to?
very fair summary. So it would be, yeah. So I'd be playing it on slot, and I'm not suggesting that two away games. I mean, Everton last game at Goodison, away game to Bournemouth. Nobody fancies that, do they? But
No,
still,
they're a
I
good
think
team.
Liverpool are a
Yeah.
significantly stronger team than Bournemouth. So I still see wins there. I'm not saying there'll be clean sheets, but I think there's wins there. And then there's the home game to Wolves, and then I would almost certainly hop off slot in 26 and jump onto somebody else. And it could be Arsenal, or it could be me starting to go on some chase after one of the bonus points in that week. It could be Palace, for example. But I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. But my intrinsic interest is keeping it safe and getting a 30 odd points on the board for the assistant manager chip and leaving myself free to concentrate on the rest. So that's that's where I'm headed with that. So option one, option two are based upon playing it right now. And then the variance between those two, we don't really know how it's going to play out yet, but that's really about how it goes with the FA Cup games. Excuse me, not the FA Cup, what's it called? The
Carabao
the
Cup.
Bongo Cup, the Milk Cup. Thank you very much, the Carabao Cup. So we're going to know before 25, aren't we, who's going to be playing in the games which force the blanks in 29. Now, normally I'd be more inclined to keep the free hit for 34 when there's a larger blank, but I started playing around with how my team would look. And essentially it came down to if I didn't take a free hit in 29 and Manchester City had started to show a bit of leg, and start playing sexy again and start scoring 4 goals every game, you'd really, really, really want to have those in for your team. But if I was to go there with, let's say, Haaland and De Bruyne and or Foden and Radio, shall we say, and not
Edison,
who shall not be named. No, mate, not Edison, as you perfectly well know. I have the scars.
You did threaten. Craig did threaten before we started recording, guys, that if I mentioned him, he'd turn off the video. So hopefully, this if you're watching this, that threat didn't play out. Yeah.
Yeah. Just wait till we're done. But if I went for City in 29 without free hitting, it would cost me at least, at the absolute minimum, 1.5 of actual money, of actual team value, not accrued. Actually, and that is a serious amount of money just ahead of a wild card.
Yeah.
To be pissing out the window. So I really don't feel very comfortable with that at all, which forces you into the free hit or forces you into a later wild card because they have a decent run in, they have a decent game in 30 as well. So I don't like throwing that much money out the window just for a very, very short space of games. If it was a longer investment, fine. But it's not necessarily that case. So I really want to see how 29 looks before I decide between, if I've chosen to an assistant manager this week, then the choice of when to free hit will wait until we know what 29 looks like. The other one, option 3, I think if you have my idea of going for the big hitter with the big teams, there's quite a few teams have nice fixtures in that run around 31, 32. There's any constellation of, City and Arsenal and Liverpool who you can go for. 33, we don't know yet, but at least one of them is going to have a sexy double. I feel pretty certain about that. The disadvantage with it is it's going to, I say disadvantage, it's going to make you go for, it's going to compromise your 29 team because I almost certainly won't throw all my money out the window in 29 ahead of the wild card. So I'm a little bit worried about how 29 looks if it's a City friendly 29. Thereover, it places my bench boost in 36, which would be, because I would have to play the assistant manager in 31, the wild card has to be in 30. And you suppose you could say, well, why don't you wait until after the free hit to wildcard? But I think there's an inherent advantage of wildcarding just ahead of the assistant manager to get that balance between the manager price and the squad price and get all your ducks lined up. but the inherent problem with option 3 is that it places the bench boost 6 weeks after I'm wildcarded.
And there's it's bench
And
boosting
that's a
late, Craig,
long
isn't it?
time.
It's bench boosting late as
Yeah,
well. You know,
yeah.
it feels like there's
I'm not a big fan of it at all.
no.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
understand. Would you be
And then there's
recommending,
the other
Craig?
option.
Oh,
There's option.
sorry. You go on, mate. Carry
No,
on.
go on.
Well, I was going to say for option 3, I guess maybe one that folks watching who have got the triple captaincy chip would be looking at, right? Because they presumably would be using this in double game week 24 ahead of the blank in 29 and wild carding in 30. Is this kind of what you'd be to the folks watching who've got that chip? Is that what you'd be saying? Yeah.
100%. 100%. And if we move on to the next slide, I
let's
can
do it.
easily explain why.
Let's move on. We've got a rundown, guys, of what these fixtures look like coming down the stretch a little bit closer to the end of the season. Okay, folks. So what we've tried to bring out here is a visual that depicts the end of season fixtures and trying to summarise where they look good and where they don't look so good. Talk us through this, mate. It doesn't appear like there's. Well, I'm not going to steal it from you. Talk us through your observations of these final few game weeks.
There's an awful lot of chat on X and with other videos and the rest of it about, well, save it till around the double in 36 and play it then. There'll be some teams on the beach. There'll be a chance to go after the bonus in a much more obvious way than is the case right now. The table might look a little bit different than what it was, but you still need those teams to win or at least draw to get the points, right? So 36, we don't know how it's going to look. We don't know we don't know who's going to blank. We don't know who's going to not blank. We don't know who's going to double in 36 yet. But we do know that you have to play the AM in either 35 or 36 to hit that double. And we know the fixtures in 35, and we know the fixtures in 37. We know them in 38. I mean, they're not unknown. The only thing that's unknown is who's going to double and which team are they going to double against. That's the only unknown. So there's like a fair chunk of the knowledge which we already have. And it doesn't look good.
No.
So on the left-hand side of the screen, so we're sorting out the fixture difficulty. And so if we just forget the assistant manager bonus, the league bonus for 1 second, Everton sit at the top. I mean, given what maybe is inherent conservativeness about how many points I want to get from the chip, I don't fancy putting all my eggs in Dave Moyes' basket. No, thanks very much. No offense to Everton fans. Ipswich, forget it. Leicester, do me a favour. And then at number 4 on the list, there comes for me the only really interesting option, which is hoping that Pep's got everything together and they haven't gone on the beach. And you go for 35 with Wolves away to Southampton in 36 plus whoever they get, if they get a double. Then they have Ipswich at home in 37. There could easily be a lot of goals in the what did I just say? Ipswich, Bournemouth at home in 37. There could be goals there. That's the one where I can see, I respect that. I completely see why you would say I'm saving it for Pep in 35. It's just which Pep and which City. I don't think the last 2 games have given me any confidence that they've turned the corner and they're back to their best. So I feel a little bit uneasy about that. Thereafter, I challenge anybody to look through that list of fixtures. And I'm not saying find a team who's got 3 in a row who are absolutely fantastic, but even just leaving the league bonus aside, there just aren't many underdog teams who've got a game who I'd really feel comfortable saying, I really think they're going to beat that other team who's higher above them in the league. West Ham, oh dear, of course you're a House fan. So West Ham home to Tottenham in 35. And we can win that, Tom.
Well, I'm about the most pessimistic West Ham fan you're ever likely to encounter, as you know, Craig. I would say Spurs we tend to turn up against historically, but it's a crapshoot, right? We could get hammered, we could beat them, we could draw. There's no kind of science behind that one, right? So
and that's my feeling about nearly all of these games. That's the feeling I have about most of these games where you've got teams which you suspect will be below. It's like, they might win. But I wouldn't bet £2 on it. Never mind my assistant manager chip.
No.
So I don't feel at all, unless you say, listen, I'm going for City, and I really think that Pep's turned the corner. I don't think there's very much at all around in 35, 37, 38 to warrant playing it in 36 on the hope that the double in 36 is so special that it outweighs the risk of the games on either side of you playing the chip. So that's why I didn't include it on the list of options for the chip. So if you haven't played the TC yet, I mean, for me, it's not even close to being a discussion. If you played the TC in 24, you hit the assistant manager in 31.
Yeah.
And then you deal with 30. You're free hitting 29 or 34, depending on how the games go in the semi-finals.
Feels
So
eminently sensible.
I definitely wouldn't go for 36. I really wouldn't. And I know other people have a different opinion, but I just don't understand it. It's one of the few times that I've been staring at the fixture list and doing odds and the rest of it. I just don't see it. I just don't see how it's an option. But there seems to be such a talk about, oh, we're going to wait till 36 and there'll be some good stuff then and we'll know more. I just don't see it. I really don't. So I would. I'm not going anywhere near it. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
So
Honestly,
that's what kind of lies behind my plans.
I love it. It's been enlightening, and I think you've made a really compelling case for certainly around the triple captaincy use in Double Gameweek 24, but also to hold fire in the assistant manager chip in the way that you've described. It's been really, really useful analysis. Thank you, mate. We are now going to take a look, guys, just try and get it back to some player focus now and take a look at our stats roundup of how individuals and teams have performed over the last 4 game weeks. Okay, mate. So you mentioned off camera that these stats look markedly similar to that which we went through with Andrew last week, and indeed they do. But look, you've still got 4 free transfers, Craig, for Double Game Week 24. You've talked around what your plans are to use some of them. Is there anyone on here that you're sort of thinking might be part of the thinking a little bit longer term, moving past the Double Game Week? Is there anyone that's kind of leaping out to you that say, actually, that guy's of interest? A reason for asking is Mbumo's been talked about in all of my videos, I think, over the course of he's just having a great season, isn't he? From after 23 game weeks, I think we can say that with a fair degree of certainty now that he's a great pick for the run-in, right, based on what's gone on before. Is there any names that you're seeing on this screen here in terms of people who are standing out from a stats perspective that you're thinking, actually, they deserve a bit of my time, or is it just the usual suspects? What's your read, mate?
Well, I think Foden. The interesting ones are Foden and Kevin are back on the menu. Depending on which one you look at, but both of those are really piquing my interest. But I want to see a little bit more from City to know that it's the real deal, or they're back to something approaching. Haaland, I mean, he's a fantastic caption option in 29, but I wouldn't go there before. Mbuemo, he's coming in. Whistler is on the menu. Calvert-Lewin's injured, so he's not, and I've forgotten his name. And Diaye, he's not of any interest for me whatsoever. Now, I know there's a few going for him, but his expected numbers are horrid. So
it's a pure punt on 24, isn't it?
I'm also going to be having a few punts in 24, so I shouldn't get too holy about it. But I don't really see him as being an option. Szoboszlai.
Yeah, I was stunned to see his name up there, because that was a renegade rogue shout. I was not expecting to see that. People who are tempting ahead of the double, is there anything that would recommend him being included in the 3? Surely not, right? You'd still be going with Trent
for me now.
And
First of all,
Gakpo.
And Gakpo or Alisson if you're worried about Gakpo's minutes or something. But no, Szoboszlai, I think he shoots a lot, but it's less than menu, right? I mean, the end product doesn't necessarily match the output, and he tends to hit them pretty early as well. So I'm not swayed by that stat. The one that's really interesting is Cunha back on the menu, especially if I was just as we came on air. Then there came through the news from the Athletic that Duran from Villa looks like he's going to Saudi Arabia. Watkins is staying at Arsenal. You have to assume, which I presume makes Cunha a bit interesting for Arsenal. So I've got all eyes on the transfer window, because Cunha at Arsenal would be really interesting.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Visa, so where are we? Mbuemo, Visa, Cunha if he moves. Jackson, no, shoot me, not interested.
No.
Garnacho, well, where will he be? I suppose. So
Foden's interesting, right?
With the Foden, Kevin, all the Bournemouth guys interest me. The one who interests me the most actually is the cheaper chap, and I've forgotten. I almost forget names when I come on this pod, Tom. There's something like coming in here which absolutely drives me mad. Dango Asara. he's not quite there on the list, but he's for 0.7 or 0.8 less than Clivert and Semenya, which is what he'll be come the deadline. I think he's a really interesting shout, and I think his minutes with what's his name, the one who's back from injured, Tavernier is back
Yeah, that's right.
in training. So someone's going to have some minutes reduced as he gets these back in. Probably not Dango. I'm
No.
thinking. So
Do you think, Craig,
so I'm quite interested in him as well.
do you think there's something about, you're talking around Bournemouth options there, looking on screen at the moment, we've got Bournemouth appearing on the XGC, right? They've been impressive defensively. Like we've got Clivert called out.
Yeah.
We've talked around Semenya and a couple of other folks there. We underselling how difficult this game is for Liverpool away at the Cherries as part of the double. Do you see Liverpool going there and winning comfortably?
No, but I did. As I said before, no one wants to go to Bournemouth these days. I'm quite certain about that. But I still think that Liverpool have enough to win, but it won't be an easy game. So
No.
anybody, and that's the downside of playing my AM in 24, or for that matter, your TC in 24. That those two away games are not anywhere near as easy as it could have been. But no, it won't be easy. But I still do genuinely see Liverpool winning down there. I haven't seen the bookies odds yet. Are they out yet? But I mean, I'm presuming Liverpool are still the favourites for the game. So
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
in that sense, I still feel comfortable. But I'm sure I'll be hiding behind the sofa when I'm watching it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Hoping
fair
that
enough.
Mo doesn't, one of those vagaries of FPL fortune, hoping that Mo doesn't score and helping other triple captainers.
We did captaincy on him.
That's really it's the I'll definitely captain him. There's no question about that. No question about that whatsoever. But really, right now, I mean, for me, it's getting way more in this week, and unfortunately, I'll be getting Pickford for Sells and the wonderfully horrible Michaelenko for Timber, and I'll save a transfer so that I have two going into next week, and in 25 I should know more about 29, so I can start thinking a wee bit about who makes sense to bring in for the weeks ahead, based upon whether or not I play the free hit in 29. But I mean, I really can't imagine anything other than it's just load up on Bournemouth really quick. So it seems a relatively easy way ahead.
It does,
in terms of choices. Once I've decided where to go with my assistant manager, but right now it's 50-50, maybe 51-49 in favour of playing it this week.
There we go. I said we'd tip the
I have
scales.
to confess that I feel, yeah, you did. There we go. So let's call it 60-40. I'm much more nervous about this than I was about triple captaining Haaland in game week 2. Much more. So
right,
have a glass of wine perhaps before I smash it.
Yeah, I think that's always recommended, mate. Definitely. Look, we've gone just over half an hour, which is right on what we want to be, mate. So absolutely perfect. I certainly feel a lot more comfortable about what I'm likely to do with my remaining chips. That's been super helpful, Craig. But is there anything else you wanted to bring up before we wrap things up, mate?
No, I have nothing.
No, I'm glad.
No sage words of wisdom to finish.
No, cool. Well, look, I mean, it's always fab to get you back on. I'm so glad you're having another kick-ass season. I keep up my run of making sure guests come on the show after they've had a few red arrows in a row. So I wonder who will get on next week. I'll have to scour through the FPL Elite Managers League and find out who wants to come on for a therapy session. But hopefully it turns the season back to the green arrows in Double Game Week 24, mate. Good luck with the assistant managership if you use it, and for the rest of the season we'll get you back on in a few game weeks, I'm sure. Guys, do please smash a like on the video on your way out. Do please head over to fantasyfootballfix.com if you haven't already and subscribe, and do subscribe to the channel as well. And very best of luck in Double Game Week 24, guys, and I'll be back with you all next week. Take care. Bye-bye.